Welcome back to the Future Print Leaders Summit. I'm really delighted to introduce our next speaker from Fujifilm Ink Solutions Group, who we're delighted have become a Future Print Premier Partner for the year. The next session is presented by Mr. Steve Wood, who is Commercial Director of Fujifilm Ink Solutions Group. Steve comes with 20 years experience of ink and inkjet, particularly in the sign and graphic display market initially, and then obviously with the development of UV inkjet inks. More latterly, he is the driving force behind the Fujifilm Ink Solutions Group, who have a mission and a purpose in the market really to help people leverage the right ink formulations for new markets, a really critical and key issue. So without further ado, the next session, Enabling Ink Technology with Steve Wood.
I've been involved with the print industry and mostly inkjet nearly all of my working life. The start of my career with Fujifilm was involved in selling inks and consumables into the analog printing market, primarily in screen printing, where I was part of the digitisation of that market. And proudly within Fujifilm, I was the first to sell a UV mid-range flatbed printer, which allowed me to witness firsthand the power of inkjet and how it can positively change businesses. I've progressed through the organisation in many inkjet related roles, from sales to product management into marketing. But now, as the commercial director of the recently formed Fujifilm Ink Solutions Group, I'd like to share with you how we're using Fujifilm's global capabilities and infrastructure to support our customers in their development of inkjet applications, and how we are enabling ink technology to make applications possible. To give you a bit of background, Fujifilm has manufactured high quality inkjet inks and technologies for over 20 years and has successfully helped customers digitise analog markets. We supply OEMs, ink companies, brands and customers with a broad range of ink technologies, from UV to solvent-based to water and hybrid, but also pigment dispersion technologies as well, which we see as a core capability within the product offering. Fujifilm's strategy is to develop leading inkjet technologies that enable the digitisation of markets, and this journey goes back to 2005 with Fujifilm's acquisition of key manufacturing capabilities across the world to expand its footprint and core technology capabilities. Fujifilm have now enhanced those capabilities at sites across the UK, US and India, and they've formed a close collaboration with Japan, where the core research function sits today. So Fujifilm are perfectly positioned to leverage this extensive knowledge and capabilities to drive inkjet into the future. I've been lucky enough to be part of this journey myself for around 20 years now. That's allowed me to see firsthand the highs, the lows, the challenges, the disappointments and the successes of how you digitise analog markets. And the one thing I think I've learned is that you have to be in this for the long term. It has to be an important role that you play in part of that journey to industrialise the market as it moves forward. I'd like to give you my view on some of the trends we see in the industry today. I think we all know there are some very good examples where the path to digitisation has been successful and the technology has moved from being complementary to mainstream. And I think that what we're seeing today is that the technology for the new markets has yet to align with some of the demands. What I mean by this is really that we've seen some of the technologies, such as when at Drupa 2016 we saw MEMS printhead technology becoming a little bit more mainstream. Now that was really fantastic, because what that allowed us to do was to increase productivity and quality at the same time. This of course opens many new possibilities and many new segments. The reality behind this is that ink, to a certain extent, and access to the ink technology has been somewhat behind the curve. What we must do now as an industry and as ink formulators is to focus on how we deliver fit-for-purpose solutions to drive this technology forwards. Now, of course, the pandemic has accelerated activities in many areas of our private life as well as our professional. What we're seeing is that the many brands where a lot of the demand comes from have been turning their research plans into development activities. Now this stimulates investment in digital printing technologies because they're responding to answering the need for supply chain efficiencies and ambitious sustainability goals mainly in packaging. I think a lot of the success factors around this, around developing new and innovative solutions, is collaboration. So yes, of course, there are core understandings of printhead, complex chemistry, delivery systems and software, but actually it's around collaboration and working together to deliver these solutions, because on their own and individually, they won't succeed. The technology's shown us that developing hardware to deliver speed, resolution and return on investment is now reasonably established. And there's some good examples of that. But as a core component, ink has an increasingly important role to play in determining the viability and success of technology being adopted. So we believe that at this point, that ink and ink technology is the enabler to make the next generation of applications possible. So let's explore that a little bit further. When you look at ink, you know you've got to look at the whole journey of the product and its position and part to play within any system. The story starts at the selection of the right raw materials, because you've got to ensure that you have stable inks which jet reliably and at the right quality. But the journey of ink doesn't stop there. So at the point at which the ink ejects from the printhead and lands on the given material, it's actually got another life after that, in terms of how does it cure or dry, how does it perform in the post-processing, such as it needs to laminate, whether it needs light fast properties, whether it needs to be folded, whether it's for indirect food packaging, or whether the product needs to be recycled further in its life cycle. And while applications might look similar, they can place very, very different demands on the ink. The head technology could be different, the speed, the cost, requirements could also be different. So it's absolutely fundamental to understand the application in detail to ensure the products are as suitable as possible for the final application. Another important part is down to our intellectual property portfolio, because you need the space in which to maneuver and adjust the levers of formulation to ensure that you can deliver developments to the specific customer requirements within that given segment. There's a few examples of this to illustrate. Whilst we can't talk about all of them today, three key areas is around packaging applications. So one is around water-based onto plastic and film type material, but the other is about water-based onto paper-based material, where the actual challenge of these different materials requires a very, very different type of chemistry in order to be successful. And then we're talking about UV and UV LED chemistry for indirect food contact applications such as label. And I think the main areas around where the demands are going to be placed on ink formulators going forward are, there's the core dispersion technology, there's the complex chemistry in how you formulate the ink, and the other part of it, of course, is the manufacturing process. And having the process control and efficiencies to meet the precise quality and cost requirements, especially when you talk about high-speed single pass applications, then being able to manufacture, of course, all of this at scale. So history tells us that the most successful systems and segments to integrate inkjet are the ones that have worked in close collaboration. So when the ink and the printhead and the system development and software are all developed together at the same time. Otherwise, what we find is that there's an elongation of the technology adoption, which isn't to the benefit of anybody. So how are we solving these challenges? Within the Ink Solutions Group, we're focused on three core areas. Firstly, it's about our customer. We want to put the customers at the centre of everything we do. So as part of that, there's an expansion plan of our people. We want to put our experts as close to the customer as we possibly can. What that means is the customer will be able to tap into a wealth of experience, both technically and commercially, to help them guide them through the myriad of possibilities to provide solutions which are tailored to their absolute individual needs. Secondly, it's around technology. So Fujifilm invests around 7% of its annual revenues into research and development. That's really important because this continued investment is critical to developing products that are ready for today's market, but also be ready for the future needs. And as part of that, it's about the IP portfolio. Fujifilm has one of the biggest patent portfolios in the inkjet ink market today, and that allows us to the formulation latitude to overcome many of the challenges we currently see. This will enable us to develop the broadest product range in the market. And third, it's about capability. One thing we've learned in inkjet is that you need deep pockets and be willing to invest for the long term. There's a lot of learning to be done, so you need the financial power to invest in capital, but also in technology too. You have to be in it for the long game. And this is the only way to move the technology forward, in my opinion. The benefit of working for a large organisation like Fujifilm is that they have a very long-term view into the future. What that allows us to do is invest strategically and at the right time and when we need it, and now's one of those times. We're right now announcing an expansion plan of our aqueous pigment dispersion capability at our technology facility in America. This is to expand our footprint of capability and further increase our reach to exciting new markets. And of course, on top of that, we invest in our people, because it's the people that develop and make the products and advise our customers. And we're very passionate about how we enable our people to develop within the organisation to be experts in what they do. So what does all of this mean for you and us going forward? What we see now is the future of inkjet is really bright, and in all areas, especially single pass applications, where that's opened up lots of new opportunities, is new segments, which is fantastic for all of us involved. The reality behind that is that the technology must meet the requirements of each segment to deliver the right mix of performance and cost and move inkjet from niche to complementary to mainstream. The goal of Fujifilm Ink Solutions Group is to enable inkjet technology by developing new products to answer the challenges of jetting an application. We believe that we have experience and knowledge to help our customers take full advantage of the potential of inkjet.
So thanks for that, Steve. That was really interesting. Got a few questions for you. First one, why is Fujifilm investing in the Ink Solution Group now?
Yeah, it's a good question, Marcus. I think it's really around a few areas. The first is regarding the sort of the opportunity in the market. We feel that the markets are absolutely ready now. So we've been doing this for a couple of years, but now's the time for us. We see where a lot of our customers, a lot of industry for digital printing now are moving their plans from research into proper development now. So what we're seeing is that that's bringing forward investment plans, that's bringing forward new opportunities for us and for the inkjet industry to take advantage of. And we think we've got a really good story to tell, and we believe that we've got a lot to offer in our knowledge and expertise in order to help propel inkjet forwards. And probably since the pandemic as well, that everything's kind of accelerated, moved forward in priority, that really now's a good time for Fujifilm. With the backing of our colleagues in Tokyo, we feel that the opportunity is absolutely ripe. And in terms of the technology, we also think that inkjet's ready now. As I said in the presentation, that perhaps the ink technology itself is a little bit behind. We're working very hard with developing products and solutions to some of those issues. But we really feel now it's a really exciting time for inkjet. To propel it forwards. I think thirdly, there's a real desire within Fujifilm to make the technology available to further the digitization of inkjet into many new markets. So it's really around that area as to why that Fujifilm have backed me and the rest of the Ink Solutions Group to really start to come out into the market and to talk about what wonderful products we have to offer.
Brilliant. Okay. So you hinted on a couple of things there, but what kind of developments are you working on now?
So we're working on lots of different developments across lots of different segments. We're working on inks and dispersion technology for the packaging segment. I know that's a really hot topic, and it's quite a broad range of markets when you break it down, but there's lots of new opportunities that we're working on in there. We're producing ink for decor applications, which is has quite a stringent application range for the ink itself. Other areas that are really interesting, Marcus, are imprinting inks for the pharma market. Obviously now more so than ever, the need for vaccines and drugs for following the pandemic has kind of exploded. So we're seeing there's a huge amount of interest in variable data for those kind of applications, and lots of other industrial applications, such as including things like textile. But not forgetting really the more mature markets as well, things like sign and display and commercial print. We're looking to try and expand the reach of that technology to broaden its appeal even further with the current technology that's available today.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. You also mentioned in the talk about the transformation of sign and graphics from screen printing to digital inkjet. Are there any lessons learned in that transformation that you can kind of look at other industries and think, that kind of pattern starting to form in these new markets?
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of learning, for myself and from the team at Fujifilm. What I would say, Marcus, is that you have to go into these things with your eyes wide open. In terms of investment in itself, the drive to produce products that will enable the development has to be done in combination with the hardware. But you need to have a long-term view, in terms of returning and realizing your investment in this technology. If we take sign and display, for example, it's taken 20 years to get to where it is today. And we've got first-hand experience of the screen printing market, where with the previous Sericol business, we saw that we had to transition, and we wanted to transition that analog market to inkjet. And the time frame has taken a lot longer than we anticipated. So some of that is about market adoption and readiness, but some of it's about just the technology being available and just how much investment and time needs to go in to really make it mainstream. We've also seen that early involvement and early adopters with a mindset to challenge the technology, we believe they really reap the rewards. So of course there's, pain and anguish being an early adopter, but I think if you go in with that mindset, we've seen that those people have been the leaders of that technology in the industry, and it's allowed them to really get ahead. We've also seen as well that I think collaboration of the ink in the system is critical to the success. And what I mean by that is that the later you leave ink, thinking about ink in a development, the longer the process takes. Really, it's about very early involvement and an intimate understanding of the interrelationship between the software, the hardware, the print heads, and the ink gets the best from the system. I think the system itself, really breaking it down into two real areas. I think there's the primary purpose is to get the specification, the development time, and the validation right. That gets you a product that becomes, established and available. The second part of inkjet, of course, is secondary but very important, which is about its robustness. People want want a return on investment, but they want this technology to last many years. And it's also about an evolution of that roadmap, is that the available technology today will not be the available technology in years to come. And an example of that is, I have personal experiences with the Inca platform. I go back to, 2000, 2001, when the first kind of Eagle printers came along, and you're talking sub 60 square meters an hour. And that evolution of the product through to, 1,000 square meters an hour printing onto multiple different materials, the evolution of that has been 20 years really to get to where it is today, to become a much more refined product where it absolutely fits the market need. And ink has got an important part to play with that, is that's had to evolve at the same speed as the technical developments in hardware. So there's a lot of learnings, and I think getting ink at the front of the discussion and as part of that journey will only help to speed up those developments as we move forward into the future.
And on that note, in terms of ink development, you mentioned quite a key one, which seems the US facility. Can you talk a little about that and the focus, I think, on aqueous?
Yeah, definitely. So the Ink Solutions Group, we're already supplying pigment dispersions to the wide industrial markets. We produce high quality, high purity products to people all around the world. But what we've realized is that the need for especially aqueous technology for the future is going to be the area where we feel we need to expand both our geographic footprint, both from Europe into the States, but also as a technology, we think this will have, in certain areas such as industrial applications and packaging, water-based will be dominant. And what we've done as a result of that demand is that we're investing $19 million in an expansion plan to install a pigment dispersion plant in our Newcastle facility in Delaware. And that is, as I say, an absolute response to just the demand that we're now seeing from customers. And we've got to be ahead of that because building facilities takes time, but we expect in the next few years to be ready with that, to be mainstream, and to service our customers, from a true global footprint.
Interesting. So obviously in the UK, in Broadstairs, the focus is more on UV. From what you've said there, does that mean UV you think will eventually be phased out as a ink chemistry?
I think that they all have their own strengths and weaknesses in terms of the technology. I don't think that there will be one dominant technology as we move forward. I think that everything has its place. UV has some perfect characteristics where instant curing, small footprint design is perfect for label, wide format display. It's an absolute fit, and of course, in terms of the wide application range it has to serve. But as we move forward, aqueous is much more aligned with the properties that people want for high-speed printing onto things like packaging applications, where indirect food contact, low pile height, etc., low odor, tend to be much more comfortable with that technology. So I guess in answer to that, we don't see that there will be any detriment to UV technology by the introduction of water-based. We see that there'll be an expansion of both as we move forward.
Okay. And one last question is, for my interest more than anything else, obviously Fujifilm Dymatics is a very well-known head manufacturer, inkjet head manufacturer. In terms of collaboration, you've talked about collaboration being quite critical, obviously within the Fujifilm group, but equally beyond that, as an ink solutions group, part of Fujifilm, will you work with other head providers and other technology businesses that exist out there?
Yeah, definitely for us. So I think the critical element is getting the ink and the print head to work together, and that's no small undertaking. And for us to be successful, we're absolutely open to working with many printhead vendors around the world, because what we want to do is tailor solutions to make inkjet mainstream. And in order to do that, it's quite clear that there's various options in the market in terms of the characteristics that the printhead can deliver. And we want to be working with all printhead vendors to ensure that our products are applicable for lots of different market applications, because ink needs to be printed and it needs to go through a printhead. So from our perspective, we're open to working through multiple channels to look for the best applications.
Brilliant. Well, thanks so much for that, Steve. Very interesting. Congratulations. I'm really happy you're part of this future print community, and you've chosen to use this platform to really sort of be your first sort of port of call in terms of informing people of this exciting development. So thank you for being part of it and for being part of the event today.
No, thank you, Marcus. Really enjoyable.